The night was still foggy and not at all clear when Santa arrived at the home of the deer. Onto the roof with the clouds all around it, he searched for the chimney, and he finally found it. The room he came down in was blacker than ink. He went for a chair, turned out to be a sink. The first reindeer bedroom was so very black, he tripped on the rug and burst open his pack. So dark that he had to move close to the bed and peck very hard at the sleeping deer's head. And before he could choose the right kind of toy, a doll for a girl, a train for a boy. See the little deer picking out? That's pretty cool. But all this took time and filled Santa with gloom while filling his way toward the next reindeer's room. Now the door he had just opened, when to his surprise, a soft, glowing, red-colored light met his eyes. Now the lamp wasn't burning. The light came instead from something that lay at the head of the bed. And there lay, but wait now, what would you suppose? The glowing? Yeah, you guessed it. It was Reindeer's red nose. This room was easy. This one little light let Santa pick quickly the gifts that were right. How happy he was till he went out the door, and the rest of the room was as black as before, like the rest of the house. So black that it made every step a dark mystery. And then came the greatest idea in all of history. He went back to Rudolph and he started to shake him. Of course, very gently, in order to wake him. And Rudolph could hardly believe his own eyes. You just can imagine his joy and surprise at seeing who stood there a paw's length away and told of the darkness and the fog and the delay, and Santa's great worry that children might waken, and before his complete Christmas trip had been taken. And you, he told Rudolph, may yet save the day. Your bright shining nose, son, can show us the way. I need you, young fellow, to help me tonight, to lead all my deer on the rest of our flight. And Rudolph broke out into such a big grin, it almost connected his ears and his chin. He scribbled a note to his parents in a hurry. I've gone to help Santa, he wrote. Don't worry, said Santa. Meet me in my sleigh on the lawn. You'd stick in the chimney, and flash, he was gone. So Rudolph pranced out through the door very gay, and he took his proud place at the head of the sleigh. Well, the rest of the night, well, what would you guess? Old Santa's idea was a brilliant success. And brilliant was almost no word for the way that Rudolph directed the deer in the sleigh. In spite of the fog, they flew quickly and low, and they made such good use of the wonderful glow that shone out from Rudolph at each intersection that not even once did they lose their direction. At all of the houses and streets with a sign on them, the sleigh flew real low, so Rudolph could shine on them. To tell who lived there and just what to give whom, they'd stop by each window and peek in the room. Old Santa knew always which children were good and minded their parents and ate as they should. Quentin, did you hear that? So Santa would pick out the gift that was right, with Rudolph close by, making just enough light. It all went so fast that before it was day, the very last present was given away, and the very last stocking was filled to the top, just as the sun was preparing to pop. The sun woke the reindeer in Rudolph's hometown. They found the short message that he had written down. They gathered outside to await his return, and were they surprised and excited to learn that Rudolph, the ugliest deer of them all, Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer, bashful and small, the funny-faced fellow they always called names, and practically never allowed in their games, was now to be envied by all far and near, for no greater honor can come to a deer than riding with Santa and guiding his sleigh, the #1 job on the #1 day. The sleigh and its reindeers soon came into view, and Rudolph still led them as downward they flew. Oh my, was he proud! And they came to a landing right where his handsomer playmates were standing. The same deer who used to do nothing but tease him would now have done anything just to please him. They felt even sorrier than ever had been, that they had been bad, when Santa said, "Rudolph, I never have had a deer quite so brave or so brilliant as you, at fighting black fog and at steering me through. By you, last night's journey was actually bossed. Without you, I'm certain we'd all have been lost. I hope you continue to keep us from grief on future dark trips as Commander-in-Chief." So Rudolph just blushed from his head to his toe till all of his fur was as red as his nose. The crowd clapped their paws and they started to screech, "Hooray for our Rudolph! We want a speech!" But Rudolph, still bashful, despite being a hero, was tired. His sleep on the trip totaled 0. So that's why his speech was quite short and not bright. Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night. There's old Rudolph. See, he fell asleep. Wait a minute. Fell asleep after a night out on the town. And that's why, whenever it's foggy and gray, it's Rudolph the Red-Nosed who guides Santa's sleigh. Be listening this Christmas. Be listening, Emma and Quentin, and don't make a peep. Don't make a peep. 'Cause that late at night, children should be asleep. The very first sound that you'll hear on the roof will be the sound of Rudolph's small hoof. And soon after that, if you're still as a mouse, you may hear a swish as he flies around the house and shines enough light to give Santa a view of you in your room. And then when they're all through, you may hear them call as they drive out of sight, "Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night." But, Emma and Quentin, you know what the first sound is that you will hear. That's the sound of the sleigh bells. Listen very quietly. Happy Christmas, sweeties. Rudolph. Broken foot, Grandma.